Speaking of winning, you mentioned before the break how the Chicago Bears have not had a passer throw for over 4,000 yards in, I believe, ever. Perhaps they won the draft and have found their guy, but I still think they can be successful without that particular achievement. But talk to me about Caleb Williams and what we can expect.
Yeah, look, the upside for him as a player is something along the lines of Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a really good comp that
coming from you.
Yeah, Thor, well, let's hope with less of the other nonsense. But Thor Nystrom, who I work with over at Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, he's the best college football analyst, in my opinion, that, on the planet. And I think he's right when he talks about, the crazy kind of plays that he can make, the arm strength, the ability to move in the pocket. Like, he's not going to rush for 1,000 yards. It's not Caleb Williams' game. But he is going to be mobile enough to pick up a first down when he needs it and do more. But even in these projections, if you look at this, when you're talking about Rome Odunze and why I'm kind of sour on him, look at the projections here in year one. 3,600 passing yards. Now, DJ Moore, right? Keenan Allen, new toy there. Those are big-time veteran wide receivers. They're going to demand target share. Rome Odunze, the only way that he somehow, if 36 is the number here for Caleb Williams, the only way that Rome Odunze really kind of plays above board of his ADP is if there is an injury to one of those guys and he gets to play and start another 6 games. Because the lesson to be learned last year with Jackson Smith and Jigba was talent is great. Opportunity and talent is what you need in order to make a fantasy asset. So I think 2024 could be a little tough for Rome Odunze. Now, for Caleb Williams, look, the talent level is off the charts. How his personality gels in the city of Chicago is going to be very interesting because it is a tough town. You know that. You work there. You've worked those towns. I understand this too. Some spots are easier landing spots for franchise quarterbacks or big-time free agents in baseball and football and NBA than others. So I'm really fascinated to see how this goes for Caleb Williams. If things go well right away, then we're off to the races. But if there's any sort of struggle in the month of September, it's going to be fascinating to see how Caleb Williams adjusts to that because I think Caleb Williams is a phenomenal talent. Would Chicago be the first place I want to draft him necessarily and drop him into if I was a fantasy manager? No, it's not. So, yes, in theory, he's got the weapons to work with. Yes, he has the talent and should have been the number one guy off the board. But again, sometimes it's all about the environment. And when you step back and you look at, again, we mentioned this on the show a few weeks ago, since 1983, only 5 guys with the number one overall pick have gone into the Hall of Fame. Just 5. So when NFL GMs have the entire board of college football ahead of them, they have selected just 5 guys since 1983 who have gone to the Hall of Fame. Now, that's kind of stunning. Now, sometimes you could say, well, bad organizations are at the bottom, the top of the draft for a reason because they're bad organizations that don't develop players. That's a fair argument. But it's still kind of stunning when you think about to have the entire board. It's like having the first pick in the draft and whiffing on it every single time in fantasy. It's something that's kind of odd. It should not happen. Caleb Williams, though, right now, QB 15 in the ECR, that makes sense to me. He could be drafted as like a perfect backup quarterback in single quarterback leagues. And then I think in Superflex leagues, he and the next guy we're going to talk about, Jaden Daniels, I think are going to be very valuable pieces.